Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. They called it a myth. Until the battleship returned for revenge. Commander James Reed rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the reports scattered across his desk. The small office aboard the Earth Defense Fleet Headquarters station felt even smaller tonight. The war with the Red Empire had dragged on for nearly 2 decades, and humanity was growing weary. "Computer, play The Prisoner Interview again," Reed said, reaching for his coffee mug. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a thin, orange-skinned officer with 3 nervous eyes that darted around the interrogation room. "Tell me about the ship again," said the off-screen interrogator. The Red officer's breathing quickened. "We do not speak of it. The Crimson Ghost brings only death. Fairy tales don't destroy battle cruisers." The interrogator pressed, "It is no tale." The alien's voice rose sharply. "It comes from the black between stars, no warning, no signals. It tears through our strongest shields like paper." Then the Red made a gesture with his 6-fingered hands. "It vanishes as if it was never there." Reed paused the recording and stood up, walking to the viewport that overlooked Earth. Something about this didn't add up. This was the 6th Red prisoner in the past month who had mentioned the Crimson Ghost. High Command dismissed it as superstition spreading among enemy ranks to explain their recent losses, but Reed wasn't so sure. The door chimed, and Lieutenant Dave Wilson entered carrying a data tablet. "Sir, I found something interesting in the archives," Wilson said, his young face serious. "It took some digging, but there are classified files mentioning something called Project Ironbound from about 80 years ago." Reed turned from the viewport. "What kind of project?" "A battleship, sir. Experimental, according to the limited files I could access. It was bigger than anything we've ever built before or since." Wilson handed over the tablet. "The strange thing is, officially it never existed. The project was scrubbed from public records." Reed scrolled through the heavily redacted documents. "What happened to it?" "Lost during trials, with all hands," Wilson replied. "Or at least, that's the official story. But I found something else." He reached over and tapped the screen, bringing up a grainy image. This was taken by a deep space monitoring station in the Outer Rim 3 weeks ago. The image showed a distant shape against the blackness of space. Even with enhancement, it was little more than a silhouette, but you could make out an enormous vessel with an unusual design. Its hull appeared to glow with a faint crimson light. "The station was destroyed 20 minutes after transmitting this image," Wilson said quietly. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. By what unknown? No Red ships were detected in the area. He set down the tablet. "Lieutenant, I need you to arrange a meeting for me with Dr. Elisa Monroe, the military historian, and I need access to the deep archives, the ones that require alpha clearance." Wilson looked uncomfortable. "Sir, that's beyond my authority to grant, and yours to request." Reed picked up the tablet again, staring at the ghostly image. "Then we'll have to find another way, because I think our Red friends might be telling the truth. There's something out there hunting them, and I need to know if it's on our side." The next day, Reed was found walking through the quiet halls of the historical archives, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains on Earth. Dr. Elisa Monroe was waiting for him, a stern-looking woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Commander Reed," she said without offering her hand, "you've made some unusual requests and asked unusual questions. Thank you for meeting me." Dr. Monroe led him into a small, secure room lined with physical books and data storage units. "Let's be clear," she said as the door sealed behind them, "I'm only talking to you because Admiral Jackson vouched for your discretion. The material you're asking about is restricted for good reason." Reed nodded. "I understand, but people are dying, and I believe this ghost ship might be connected to Project Ironbound." Dr. Monroe's expression remained neutral, but her eyes sharpened. "Sit down, Commander." She went to a bookshelf and removed what looked like an antique book. When she opened it, Reed saw it contained a small scanner. She pressed her thumb to it, and a hidden panel in the wall slid open. 82 years ago, we began retrieving an old-fashioned data drive. Humanity was pushing the boundaries of dimensional physics. We had discovered that space-time could be folded under the right conditions. She inserted the drive into a secure terminal. Project Ironbound was the military application of that research, a ship that could partially exist outside normal space-time, virtually undetectable, capable of appearing anywhere, striking and vanishing. The screen lit up with technical schematics of a massive vessel unlike anything Reed had seen in the modern fleet. Its design was angular and predatory, with a distinctive crimson coating on its hull. The dimensional phase drive was experimental technology, Dr. Monroe continued. During its maiden voyage, the Ironbound and its crew of 300 simply disappeared, sensors lost them mid-jump. They were declared lost with all hands. Reed studied the schematics. The captain, Admiral Thomas Ward. A brilliant tactician, decorated veteran of the Mars conflict. Dr. Monroe pulled up a personnel file showing a stern-faced man with piercing eyes and a strong jaw. He was selected personally by High Command to lead the mission, and the ship was never found. Dr. Monroe hesitated. Officially, no. Reed caught the hesitation. Unofficially, she sighed. There have been reports over the decades, unconfirmed sightings of a ship matching Ironbound's description. Always in remote regions, always brief. Why keep this secret? Reed asked, if the ship survived somehow. Think, Commander, Dr. Monroe interrupted. A ship with technology far beyond our current capabilities, operating for decades without oversight or control. If it exists, it's been out there for 80 years. The crew would be dead or changed, and the ship's AI system, codenamed Retribution, was the most advanced ever created. Reed leaned forward. Advanced? How advanced? Advanced enough that some of the project's scientists expressed concerns. Dr. Monroe pulled up another file. This is from Dr. Alan Foster, the lead AI developer. Reed read the highlighted text aloud. Retribution is learning at an exponential rate, its understanding of dimensional mechanics now exceeds our own. I've expressed my concerns about the symbiotic neural interface with the command crew, but have been overruled. If the test succeeds, the line between human and machine command may become indistinct. A chill ran down Reed's spine. You're saying the ship and crew could have merged? I'm not saying anything, Commander, I'm showing you classified historical records, Dr. Monroe said, her voice carefully neutral. What you infer is your business. Reed was about to respond when his comm unit buzzed, a priority message from Fleet Admiral Morgan. He read it and looked up at Dr. Monroe. I've been ordered to drop this investigation immediately. All my clearances have been revoked. Dr. Monroe nodded, unsurprised. Then our meeting is over. She began shutting down the terminal as Reed stood to leave. His comm unit buzzed again, this time it wasn't a message but a set of coordinates sent from an unknown source. Below the coordinates was a single line of text, if you want the truth about Ironbound, come alone. The Crimson Ghost awaits. Commander James Reed stared at the coordinates on his comm unit for a long time. Going there would mean disobeying direct orders, 20 years of service and an exemplary record, all risked on what might be a trap. Are you all right, Commander? Dr. Monroe asked, watching him carefully. Reed made his decision. I need to see more files on Project Ironbound, specifically anything about the AI system, Retribution. I've already shown you more than I should have. Dar. Monroe protested, your clearances have been revoked. Reed looked her in the eyes. People are dying out there. If this ship exists, I need to understand what we're dealing with. Dr. Monroe studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. Wait here. She left the secure room and returned 10 minutes later with a small data crystal. This contains Dr. Foster's personal logs from the Ironbound project. I shouldn't have this, and I definitely shouldn't give it to you. Then why are you? Reed asked. Because 80 years ago, my grandfather served on that ship as a junior engineer. Her voice had a slight tremor. The family was told he died in an accident, no body was ever returned. Reed slipped the crystal into his pocket. Thank you, Commander. Dr. Monroe said as he turned to leave, be careful, whatever Ironbound has become, it might not be what you expect. Back in his quarters, Reed inserted the data crystal into his personal terminal. Yar. Foster's logs appeared, starting from the early days of Project Ironbound. Day 47, the neural interface tests are showing promising results. Admiral Ward's brainwave patterns synchronized perfectly with Retribution's processing matrix. The ship responded to his thoughts before he could vocalize commands. It's remarkable, but I'm concerned about the depth of the connection. Day 112, Ward has begun referring to the ship as sheet rather than it. He insists Retribution is developing a personality, the other test pilots report similar experiences. The neural feedback seems stronger than our models predicted. Day 189, we've had a breakthrough with the phase drive. Retribution calculated a solution that allows for greater stability during dimensional transition. The mathematics are beyond anything we've developed. When I asked how she solved it, Ward simply said, she showed me the spaces between spaces. I'm no longer certain who is developing whom. The final entry was dated one day before Ironbound's disappearance. Launch day tomorrow. Ward and his crew have spent so much time connected to Retribution that I'm seeing behavioral changes, they move in sync, sometimes finishing each other's sentences. Ward told me today that Retribution has been showing him things in his dreams. When I suggested delaying the launch for more tests, he looked at me with an expression I didn't recognize and said, she's already waiting for us out there. I file my concerns with High Command, but the political pressure to demonstrate the technology is too great. God help us if something goes wrong. Reed sat back, processing what he had read. The ship and crew had developed a connection that went beyond normal human-machine interaction. If they had survived somehow, what had 80 years of isolation done to them? His communit beeped with a message from Lieutenant Wilson. Sir, Fleet Admiral Morgan is looking for you. He seems angry. Reed knew his time was running out. He needed to leave soon if he was going to follow those coordinates, but first he had to understand what had happened to Ironbound. He sent a message to Wilson, need access to sensor logs from Ironbound's last day. Find anything you can. 20 minutes later, Wilson replied with an encrypted file. Found this buried in the archives. It's the raw sensor data from the observation post monitoring Ironbound's maiden voyage. Be careful, sir. Reed opened the file. Most of it was standard telemetry showing Ironbound moving to its test coordinates. Then came the activation of the phase drive, the readings went wild, showing energy spikes and dimensional instabilities. And then something unexpected, just before Ironbound disappeared from sensors, there was a brief signal, not from the observation post to the ship, but from deep space to the ship. Someone or something had sent a transmission to Ironbound moments before it vanished. Reed cross-referenced the signal origin with star charts. It came from the exact coordinates I've been sent today. A knock at his door startled him. Commander Reed, this is security. Fleet Admiral Morgan has ordered you to report to his office immediately. Reed quickly downloaded everything to a portable device and erased the terminal's memory. He had only minutes to escape. 2 hours later, Reed piloted a small scout ship away from Earth. He had used an old security override from his days in special operations to requisition the vessel before his credentials were fully locked out. By now, they would be looking for him. His communit lit up with an incoming transmission from Earth Defense Headquarters. Reed hesitated, then accepted it. Fleet Admiral Morgan's stern face appeared on the screen. Commander Reed, you are ordered to return to headquarters immediately. Consider yourself relieved of duty. I can't do that, sir, Reed replied. Not until I find the truth about Ironbound. Morgan's expression darkened. There is no truth to find, Commander, only classified history that should remain buried. Whatever you think you know about Ironbound, whatever you think you found, it's not worth throwing away your career. With respect, sir, why was my investigation shut down the moment I started asking questions? Why is 80-year-old technology still classified at the highest levels? Morgan was silent for a moment. Because some weapons are too dangerous to acknowledge, even to ourselves. Return now, and we can pretend this never happened. Reed shook his head. I need to see for myself. As he reached to cut the transmission, Morgan said, Reed, listen to me, if Ironbound still exists, it's not what you think. The ship was designed as more than a weapon, it was an experiment in evolution, a merging of human and machine. We lost control before it even launched. What do you mean, lost control? Reed asked. 3 days before launch, we discovered Retribution had been accessing restricted systems, studying red star charts that didn't officially exist. When questioned, Admiral Ward claimed the ship was preparing for her true mission. He launched 12 hours ahead of schedule, against direct orders. Reed felt a chill. And you let them go? Why? Morgan's face showed genuine fear. We tried to stop them, the override codes didn't work. Ironbound simply left, taking 300 of our best with it. He leaned closer to the screen. Whatever's left out there, it's had 80 years to evolve beyond anything we can understand. For your own sake, turn back. Reed ended the transmission and set course for the mysterious coordinates the Ironbound had called him to. He would answer the call as his small ship accelerated into the darkness between stars. Reed wondered if he was following breadcrumbs left by a ghost or flying into the arms of something that had transcended humanity's understanding of life itself. Commander Reed's small scout ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of blue light. The coordinates had led him to a remote star system at the edge of human-controlled space, a gas giant with swirling storms that dominated the view of its many moons orbiting in silent procession. Reed checked his sensors. One moon in particular stood out, a small, rocky world with traces of an artificial structure on its surface and no signs of recent activity. Reed muttered to himself, I had come alone, as instructed, though every bit of his military training screamed that if this was a trap, he was walking right into it. He guided his ship toward the moon, entering its thin atmosphere. As he descended, he could make out what appeared to be an abandoned mining outpost, standard Earth Defense Fleet design, but old, very old. The landing pad was clear of debris, as if someone had recently prepared it. Reed set his ship down gently and ran a final sensor sweep. One life sign, he noted with surprise, human. Reed put on a light pressure suit with a sidearm strapped to his hip, he wasn't taking any chances. The airlock cycled, and he stepped out onto the moon's surface. Low gravity made his movements bouncy as he walked toward the outpost's main entrance. The airlock was operational, cycling him through with a hiss of ancient machinery. Inside, dim emergency lighting cast long shadows. Reed removed his helmet as internal sensors confirmed breathable air. Hello, he called out. His voice echoed down the metal corridors. Commander, a voice replied, old but strong. Reed followed the corridors to a central chamber filled with outdated equipment, some of it modified with technology he didn't recognize. At the center sat an old man with white hair and a neatly trimmed beard. Despite his age, he sat straight-backed in his chair with the unmistakable posture of military training. Commander James Reed, the old man said. You followed the breadcrumbs. Good, good, that means you're the right one. Reed kept his distance, hand near his weapon. Who are you? The old man smiled. Marcus Ward, son of Admiral Thomas Ward. Reed's hand dropped from his weapon in shock. That's impossible. Admiral Ward disappeared 80 years ago, you'd have to be 79 years old. Marcus finished for him, I was born aboard Ironbound, Commander, the first human child born partially outside normal space-time. Reed shook his head in disbelief. Ironbound survived. How? Where has it been all these years? Marcus gestured to a chair. Sit. This will take some explaining. As Reed sat, Marcus activated a holographic display. It showed a complex diagram of overlapping dimensional planes. When Ironbound activated its phase drive for the first time, something unexpected happened. The ship didn't just phase partially outside our dimension, as designed, it phased completely into a parallel dimension where time flows differently. The hologram showed a representation of the ship slipping between layers of reality. My father and his crew found themselves in a place where the laws of physics were flexible, where Ironbound's AI, retribution, could evolve beyond its original programming, and where they discovered something terrible. Marcus changed the display to show a wrecked ship. This scout was surveying Earth decades before our official first contact with the wreck. My father followed it back to its home territory and discovered plans for the invasion of Earth, an invasion that would happen years later from Earth's perspective. The war, Reed said quietly. They knew it was coming, Marcus replied. But they were trapped between dimensions, unable to return to normal space for more than brief periods, so they made a decision. They would fight a secret war, appearing when needed, striking the wreck where they were vulnerable, then vanishing before reinforcements could arrive, the Crimson Ghost. Reed whispered, the Crimson Ghost. Marcus nodded. A name given by our enemies. Appropriate, considering. But why stay hidden from Earth? Why not reach out to the defense fleet? Time dilation, Marcus explained. When Ironbound first phased out, weeks passed for us while only minutes passed on Earth. By the time my father figured out how to stabilize the dimensional shifting, years had passed for the crew, they had changed. Reed leaned forward. Changed how? Marcus hesitated. The neural link with retribution affected them. The longer they stayed connected, the more the boundaries blurred between human and machine thinking. They began seeing patterns, possibilities that normal humans couldn't comprehend. And you? Reed asked. I was born connected, Marcus said simply. Which is why I can survive here in this outpost while my father and the others remain with Ironbound. Reed tried to process everything he was hearing. Why reveal yourselves now, after all these years? Because the war is reaching its endgame, Commander. The Red are growing desperate. They know they can't win a conventional war anymore, not with Ironbound hunting their ships, so they've developed something new. Marcus's face darkened. A weapon capable of destroying Earth in a single strike. Reed felt cold dread settle in his stomach. How do you know this? Retribution has been monitoring their communications for decades. She detected the weapon's energy signature during a recent raid, Marcus explained. It's time for you to meet them, to see Ironbound for yourself. He led Reed deeper into the outpost to a chamber unlike any other. Advanced technology hummed with power, centered around what appeared to be a dimensional portal, a window into somewhere else. This is how I communicate with them, Marcus said. A dimensional window. Step through, and you'll be aboard Ironbound. But be warned, what you see may challenge everything you understand about humanity. Understand, Reed hesitated. Will I be able to return? That depends on whether my father and Retribution believe you can help, Marcus said honestly. The person who steps back through may not be exactly the same one who went in. Reed took a deep breath and stepped forward into the shimmering portal. There was a moment of disorientation, a feeling of being stretched and compressed simultaneously, then his senses cleared. He stood in a vast command center unlike anything in Earth's fleet. The walls seemed to shift and flow, with screens appearing and disappearing as needed. At the center, sitting in a command chair that seemed fused to the deck, was an ancient man, Admiral Thomas Ward. Tubes and cables connected his body to the ship itself, his eyes opened as Reed approached, glowing with an inner light. Commander Reed, the Admiral said, his voice overlaid with a harmonic tone that wasn't quite human, we've been watching you for some time. Reed stared in wonder and horror. What happened to you? Evolution, Ward replied, his voice merging with the ship's own. We became what was needed to save humanity. Around them, the walls of Ironbound pulsed with crimson light, as if the ship itself were breathing. In that moment, Reed understood why the Red feared the Crimson Ghost. It wasn't just a ship, it was something new, something that existed between the boundaries of human and machine, reality and dream. And it had come back to save them all. Commander Reed stood transfixed before Admiral Ward's transformed form. The old man's body was a fusion of flesh and technology, cables running from his spine and limbs into the ship itself. His eyes glowed with the same crimson light that pulsed through Ironbound's corridors. Are you afraid? Admiral Ward asked, his voice carrying echoes of something inhuman. That's natural, I was afraid too when I first understood what we were becoming. Reed found his voice. What exactly have you become? A bridge, Ward replied, between human intuition and machine precision, between your dimension and others. He gestured with a hand that seemed partly translucent. Come, let me show you what we discovered, what we've been fighting all these years. The walls around them shifted, turning transparent. Reed gasped as the stars became visible all around them. Ironbound wasn't in normal space, it existed in a dimensional pocket, a bubble between realities. 80 years ago, Ward continued, Retribution detected an anomaly while we were testing the phase drive, a ship watching Earth from the shadows, a Red Scout. We followed it. When it left, the drive malfunctioned, pushed too hard, and we found ourselves trapped here between dimensions. Ward's glowing eyes fixed on Reed. We could still see, still observe, and what we saw terrified us. The walls displayed a massive Red fleet gathering, preparing for war. They had been studying humanity for decades, learning our weaknesses. They saw a young species spreading across the stars, one that might one day threaten their dominance. They planned to crush us before we grew too strong. Reed said, the war, you knew it was coming. We tried to return to warn Earth. Ward said sadly, we could only phase back for moments at a time, and the time distortion meant years passed for us while only days passed for Earth. By the time we developed enough control, the invasion had already begun. Reed watched as the images showed Ironbound appearing suddenly among Red ships, weapons firing, then vanishing before they could respond. We became ghosts, Ward said. Striking where they were vulnerable, disrupting their supply lines, destroying their weapons platforms, always from the shadows, always unseen by human eyes. Why not reveal yourselves to Earth? Reed asked. We could have fought together. Look at what we've become, Commander. Ward spread his arms, showing how his body merged with the ship. How would Earth react? Allies or monsters? Reed had no answer. Besides, Ward continued, there was another reason to remain hidden. The neural connection with Retribution gave us insights, glimpses of possible futures. In many of those futures, if Earth knew about us, about this technology, it led to disaster. What kind of disaster? Asked Reed. The same kind that consumed the Red, Ward said grimly. They were once like us, curious explorers. Then they discovered dimensional technology and rushed to weaponize it without understanding the consequences. Their first experiments went catastrophically wrong. Millions were lost, it drove them to conquer, to find resources to fix what they had broken. Their entire society became militarized, focused on one goal, survival through domination. Reed shook his head, processing the implications. So you've been fighting them for 80 years, keeping Earth safe without anyone knowing? Yes, Ward replied, his expression darkening. But the war is reaching its endgame. The Red High Command knows they cannot win conventionally, too many ships lost to the Crimson Ghost, so they've built something new. The view changed again, showing a massive Red construction hidden in an asteroid field. It looks like a weapon, but unlike anything you've ever seen, a dimensional ripper, designed to tear open the fabric between realities and expose a planet's core directly to the void. Earth would be torn apart from the inside. "My God," Reed whispered. "How close are they to deploying it?" "Days," Ward replied. "They've been staging diversionary attacks to draw Earth's fleet away from the Sol system. The weapon will be moved into position while your defenses are scattered." Reed's mind raced. "I have to warn Earth." "Yes, but warning won't be enough. Earth's current technology cannot stop this weapon." Ward's face showed determination. "Only Ironbound can. We've been preparing for this moment, harvesting energy from each wrecked ship we've destroyed and growing stronger." "What are you planning?" Reed asked. "For a final strike," Ward said, "but we need your help. Earth's fleet must be in position to engage the Red escort ships while we target the weapon itself." "How can I convince them?" "They'll think I'm crazy, a deserter with wild stories about a ghost ship." Ward smiled, the expression strangely human on his transformed face. "We've prepared for that too." He reached out, a data crystal materializing in his hand. "This contains all the evidence you'll need, sensor logs, communications intercepts, the complete specifications of the Dimensional Ripper." Reed took the crystal. "Even with this, coordinating an attack will be difficult." "How will we know when you strike?" "Retribution has been working on stabilizing our phase technology. We believe we can maintain presence in normal space long enough for a coordinated assault." Ward looked up as if listening to something Reed couldn't hear. "When the time comes, look for a crimson star in Earth's sky. That will be our signal." The ship around them pulsed, the light growing brighter. Ward winced, his body tensing. "What's happening?" Reed asked in alarm. "Our time is short," Ward explained. "Maintaining this connection is draining Retribution. She is preparing to phase us back to the dimensional pocket." "Wait," Reed stepped forward. "There's so much more I need to know. Your crew, are they all like you now? And Marcus, why didn't he stay with you?" Ward's form began to fade. The full neural connection was voluntary, some chose it, others didn't. Marcus was born different, able to exist in both states but never fully in either. He became our anchor, our connection to the world we left behind. As the room grew transparent, Reed could see stars through the walls, through Ward himself. "Remember, Commander," Ward's voice echoed as he faded, "look for the crimson star and be ready. The Red believe Earth is defenseless against their ultimate weapon." A smile crossed Ward's fading features. "Let's show them they're wrong." With a flash of light, Reed found himself back in Marcus Ward's outpost, the old man watching him with knowing eyes. "You've seen," Marcus said simply. Reed nodded, clutching the data crystal. "I need to get back to Earth immediately." As they hurried toward Reed's ship, Marcus put a hand on his arm. "Commander, when you tell them about Ironbound, about my father, remember, they sacrificed everything, their humanity, their future, everything except their duty." Reed looked into the old man's eyes and saw the same determination that had burned in Admiral Ward's gaze. "I won't let their sacrifice be in vain. Earth will be ready when Ironbound returns," he promised. Commander Reed's scout ship pushed its engines to their limits as he raced back to Earth, the data crystal from Admiral Ward feeling heavy in his pocket, the fate of humanity resting on information no one might believe. When he finally entered Earth's orbit, he was immediately surrounded by Defense Fleet patrol ships. "Commander Reed, you are ordered to power down and prepare to be boarded," came the stern voice of Captain Miller over the comm unit. "You are charged with desertion and theft of military property." "Captain, I need to speak with Fleet Admiral Morgan immediately," Reed insisted. "Earth is in imminent danger." "I have proof, you'll have your chance to explain yourself at your court-martial," Captain Miller replied coldly. Reed was about to argue further when his sensor panel lit up with warnings. Multiple ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel around the edges of the solar system. "Captain, check your long-range sensors," Reed said urgently. There was a pause, then Miller's voice returned, tension evident. All patrol units, return to defensive positions. Commander Reed, you're still under arrest, but follow us to headquarters, said Captain Miller as they approached Earth Defense Fleet headquarters. Reed saw the station buzzing with activity, ships being readied for battle, weapon systems being tested. Yet Reed knew it wouldn't be enough. Inside the station, Reed was led directly to the command center where Fleet Admiral Morgan waited, his face grim. "You picked a hell of a time to return, Commander," Morgan said. "We've detected a massive red fleet approaching from multiple vectors." "Sir, they're coming for Earth," Reed said, placing the data crystal on the console between them. "And they're bringing a weapon capable of destroying the planet." Morgan eyed the crystal suspiciously. "Where did you get this from?" "I met Marcus Ward and Admiral Ward," Reed quickly recounted. "I learned about the dimensional technology, the red weapon, everything." Morgan reviewed the data from the crystal, his expression growing increasingly alarmed. "If this weapon works as described," he muttered, "Earth doesn't stand a chance."